Hey YouTube, Ray here, and I'm finally back with the full in-depth review of the fake iPhone 6. And let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to go over was call quality, since this is a phone at the end of the day. And I use this phone is unlocked, so you can use it with pretty much any carrier. I used it with Bell here in Canada, and I actually live next to the US border, so I go to the States a lot too. So I have an American SIM card, and I used it on AT&T in the US. And call quality was perfectly fine. No dropped calls, no interference really. Texting was all good too. Data, I could only get 3G. I couldn't get the 4G LTE, so that was the only really, I guess, bad thing there. But for me, it's not really a big deal. So yeah, that's call quality. Next up, I want to talk about build quality. Build quality for this phone is actually pretty good. It's very solid in the hand, very light and thin. You know, those are sort of the main changes in the new iPhone anyways. The bigger screen, obviously, and the thinness and the lightness of the new iPhone 6. So this phone definitely sort of tries to copy that as well as it can. Very thin, as I already said, quite light. The screen is again that 4.7-inch screen. This one here is a 720p screen, so it's not as great as the Retina display, but it's still pretty good. It doesn't really feel like it'll break or shatter just like that. It is very thin, so I'm sure, again, if you did try to bend it, it probably would bend. But other than that, it feels pretty good. I've dropped it a couple times, not on any hard surface, just on carpet, and hasn't really done anything to it. So pretty good job in the build quality department. Next up, I wanted to talk about the screen, which I already sort of touched on, but again, it is this 720p 4.7-inch screen that is the same size as the iPhone 6, the real one. Again, a little bit lower in the resolution. I did make a video comparing the real and fake iPhone 6s, so if you want to see that, the annotation will be here somewhere on the screen. You could sort of see the differences in the screens there. So this fake one here, just the colors just weren't as I guess contrasted. They just weren't as deep. Still, it doesn't look bad when you look at this phone by itself, but when you do put the real one next to this fake one here, you can definitely tell the difference, especially in the lock screen here, which I'll try to show. Just this one in the real iPhone just looks so much sharper and contrasted, and the colors just pop out more than over here. But still, again, not too bad for a fake phone. The next thing I want to talk about was battery life. And fake phones are known for really, really, really bad battery life, usually just a couple hours. But I was actually very surprised with this phone. On daily use, I could get through almost an entire day. So not bad at all. I'm actually very surprised. So I think, if you're not too much of a heavy user, just a few sort of social media apps here or there, some texting, some calling, some web browsing, you should be able to get about 6 to 8 hours, which isn't too bad for a fake phone. Again, as always, comparing this to a real phone, or the real iPhone 6 even, which is $650 unlocked, and this is like $100 unlocked. Obviously, this is not going to be nearly as good. I mean, the real one's 6 times the price. So you sort of have to consider that. When I say things, I'm talking about this as a $100 unlocked phone. I'm not expecting too much, so for 6 to 8 hours for a $100 unlocked phone, I'm not, it's not bad. Next up, I wanted to talk about the camera, and that's where this phone lacks, and where pretty much all fake phones lack. It's usable, but it's not the greatest. You don't really get as many features here. Basically, video and photo and panorama, which I don't even really believe sort of works. I've tried it out a couple times and I just couldn't really get it to work. So I don't really believe that actually has true panorama. It just sort of is a feature there to make it look more like the real one, because the real one does have that. Again, the real one also has 240 frames per second slow-mo video, which this obviously does not. So you just get your normal video, normal photo, pretty much. And the camera quality isn't that great. The front-facing camera is almost unusable. It's very dark. It doesn't really capture much light at all. The back camera again is usable, but if you're somebody who loves to take pictures, I would not recommend this as your sort of dependable camera. Moving on, I want to talk about the processing. Again, this phone, it's not the fastest phone in the world. It does run pretty smoothly. I mean, apps open up pretty good. I don't know if I can open up. Let's see, calendar. I didn't press it. There you go. So it's not crazy fast, but it's actually not bad at all. For again, $100 unlocked phone, you can't really expect much. But things open up pretty quickly. Again, if you're comparing it to the real one, it's not going to open up nearly as fast, but almost instantaneous. Not too bad, not much of a waiting time. It doesn't seem like much lag here either. Scrolling's pretty smooth. So again, not bad in the processing department. I was able to play a few sort of low-end games, nothing crazy. Usually games that are free will run pretty fine on this. They may take a little while to load, but they do run okay. And so of course your normal everyday apps are going to run pretty smoothly. Your Safari, your phone, mail, music, settings, photos, and everything. Those normal apps, notes and stuff, pretty low usage apps or low processor usage apps will run okay. So finally, for my final thoughts, as I said, this is a $100 fully unlocked phone, so you can't really expect too much, especially compared to the real one, which is 6 times the price. And so as a $100 electronic, even if you compare this to something like an iPod, which is even double the price, it's still a pretty decent piece of technology. They do a good job of trying to copy the real one. Obviously, I already made a video comparing the differences. There were slight differences here or there, and obviously, somebody who's seen both of them will be able to tell which one's fake, which one's real, or if you have them side by side, you'll be able to tell which one's fake, which one's real. But if you just gave this to somebody who doesn't really know much or hasn't really seen the real iPhone 6, it would be, they would have a difficult time trying to tell because they don't really know what the real one looks like. But as I said earlier, when I was comparing this to sort of an iPod, that's pretty much what I would sort of use this as. Again, an iPod that can make calls, which is pretty much an iPhone, but don't expect the same sort of performance and camera capabilities. As you all know, the iPhones usually have pretty great cameras. But if this is a phone that you're trying to give to your kid or your young kid, or maybe an older grandparent or something, that they just want to use your everyday Safari, just make some calls, text, listen to music, use everyday apps, play a few games here or there. They're not into the huge $6.99 apps, those types of games. Those won't really run that well on this because it doesn't have that same processing power that the real one has. But your free sort of apps will run okay, your everyday apps. So again, yeah, that's sort of my final thoughts. It's an phone for $100. Can't really complain. I can't really knock on it too much. Again, if I'm comparing this to the real phone, this is a piece of shit, obviously. Because as I said, the real one's so much more expensive, and it better be so much better. And it is so much better, the real one. The fake one is obviously cannot compare to the real one ever. But just looking at this as a cheap alternative, a cheap phone, a cheap smartphone, which has this 3G data capabilities. You can call, you can text, you can use your everyday apps. It's not bad at all.